Welcome back today, guys. Today we're going to be getting into chapter 22, which is Reconstruction. Okay, so we're going to be looking at this time period after the Civil War known as Reconstruction, where basically we're going to be rebuilding the southern United States after the Civil War. Okay, so we're looking at a few standards here. We're going to look at 8.67, analyze the immediate political impact of the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln and Andrew Johnson's ascension to the presidency. 8.68, explain the significance of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the U.S. Constitution. 8.69, analyze President Abraham Lincoln's 10% plan, President Andrew Johnson's plan, and the Radical Republican plan for Reconstruction. 8.70, we're going to identify the significance of the Tennessee Constitution of 1870, including the right of all men to vote and the establishment of a poll tax. 8.71, analyze the conflict between President Andrew Johnson and the Radical Republicans, including Johnson's veto of the Tenure of Office Act and his impeachment. And 8.72, explain the restrictions placed on the rights and opportunities of freedmen, including racial segregation, black codes, and the efforts of the Freedmen's Bureau to address the problems confronting newly freed slaves. All right, so the essential questions that we're going to ask ourselves today. One, what was the immediate political impact of the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln and Andrew Johnson's ascension to the presidency? What was Abraham Lincoln's 10% plan for Reconstruction? What was President Andrew Johnson's plan for Reconstruction? What was the Radical Republican plan for Reconstruction? How were black codes used to restrict the rights and opportunities of freedmen? Why did President Andrew Johnson and the Radical Republicans come into conflict with each other? And what two major conflicts occurred between President Andrew Johnson and the Radical Republicans? Okay, so let's go ahead and get started here. So first thing, after the war, the U.S. had to find a way to bring the 11 southern states back into the Union. All right. They also had to deal with issues from 4 million emancipated slaves. Now, this time period becomes known as Reconstruction, which lasts from 1865 to 1877. So 12 years worth of this rebuilding of the southern United States. Now, while Lincoln is still president and alive, he has his plan for Reconstruction. Okay, he wanted to be fair to the South and get them back into the Union as quickly as possible. Okay, to do this, Lincoln said there are three requirements. First, 10% of the people who voted in the 1860 election in each state had to take an oath to obey the Constitution. Two, each state had to set up a new government with a new state constitution. And three, each state had to abolish slavery. Okay, so no more slavery, new state constitution, 10% of the people who voted in 1860 had to take an oath to obey the Constitution. His plan would also pardon all Confederates except the highest officials and military leaders. And it would become known as the 10% plan because of the 10% with the oath to obey the Constitution. Okay, so that's Lincoln's plan. Now, of course, that hits a hiccup. Okay, on April 15th of 1865, Lincoln and his wife went to a play at Ford's Theater. John Wilkes Booth, an actor and Confederate sympathizer, snuck into Lincoln's box and shot him. Lincoln would go on to die the next morning. And Lincoln's assassination has some effects. First, it angers Northerners and opens the door for revenge on the South. Okay, so Wilkes's plan is to kind of re-spark the Civil War here. And Northerners get angry about this, okay, and try to take revenge out on the South. The other group that's affected are the African Americans, because they didn't achieve the gains that they had wished for under Lincoln, partly because Johnson, who would succeed the presidency, was not sympathetic to their needs. Okay, so after Lincoln dies, Andrew Johnson now becomes president. All right. Well, of course, Johnson comes up with his own plan for Reconstruction. He quickly started the process of Reconstruction while Congress was not in session. So Congress wasn't there to kind of check and balance him. He kind of started doing his own thing. Now, Johnson tried to follow Lincoln's plan closely. He pardoned most Southerners who would take an oath of allegiance. And the Southern states had to create new governments and ratify the 13th Amendment, which is abolish slavery. But the southern states did start passing harsh black codes. Okay, and that's kind of the bad part of Johnson's plan for Reconstruction. Okay, so let's look at black codes. Black codes were laws that only applied to African Americans that aimed to provide cheap labor and keep former slaves in a position close to slavery. Now, yes, they were free, but white people still tried to keep the African Americans kind of in that position. All right. Now, codes did vary from state to state, but generally contain the following restrictions: prevented from gathering in public unless a white person was present, prevented African Americans from owning or carrying weapons, prevented them from serving on a jury, prevented them from voting, prevented them from learning how to read, and prevented them from renting land. Okay, so these laws forced African Americans to enter into contracts that prevented them from working for more than one employer. Okay, so they could basically only have one job. They couldn't work 2 or 3 jobs for different employers. Okay, so again, these codes are aimed to keep Black people in a position close to slavery. Now, yes, they're technically free, okay, but they're trying to keep them at the bottom of the ladder. All right. Now, of course, we see the third plan for Reconstruction, which comes from Congress. Now, radical Republicans controlled Congress and wanted equal rights for freed slaves. Now, these are just normal Republicans, okay, but they kind of are on the outside of the wing. Like, they are the Republicans of Republicans, okay? Johnson opposed this, but that didn't stop Congress. Now, Congress passed a series of Reconstruction Acts that placed stricter penalties on all Southern states except Tennessee, which we'll get into a little bit later. So Congress's plan is to divide the South into 5 military districts under strict control. Southern states had to draft new constitutions giving the right to vote to all male adults. And Congress has to approve these new constitutions. And the states had to ratify the 14th Amendment. Okay, so those are kind of the 3 requirements of Congress's plan. Now, Johnson goes head to head with the Republicans and gets them upset by trying to veto their harsh plans. Okay, so Lincoln's trying to get them back quickly, get them back easily. Johnson's also kind of trying to do the same thing. Congress wants to make it hard on them, wants to make it a lot harsher. Okay, so Johnson gets impeached. Okay, Congress passed the Tenure of Office Act in those Reconstruction Acts, which limited the president's ability to remove government officers. Okay, so Johnson tries to remove his Secretary of War, who didn't like Johnson's Reconstruction policies. Well, when he did this, the House of Representatives decided to impeach Johnson, said that he broke a law, the Tenure of Office Act, and so they decided to impeach him. So President Andrew Johnson is the first president to be impeached. Okay. When his trial went to the Senate, Johnson was acquitted by 1 vote. Okay, so Johnson is also the first president not to be removed after his impeachment. Okay, he gets to remain president. Okay, so that is all that I have for today. All right, if you have questions, let me know. If not, then we will see y'all next time.